jobs back. BBC News.
Now it's time for You and Yours with Winifred Robinson in Manchester.
Good afternoon and welcome. Today, we'll have details of how a new Green Deal for home improvements is going to work. We'll be hearing the case for and against limiting the numbers of care workers coming into the UK from overseas. Can you trust the food industry to come up with solutions to tackle obesity? Discuss. We'll be doing that at around 1:45. And the woman who wants a proper investigation into the impact of moving our clocks into line with most of the rest of Europe. With the winter chill sweeping the country and boilers going full blast, you may be interested to know that the government's planning to offer every householder in the UK a new deal aimed at making their home more energy efficient. The plan is set out in an energy bill. It's to be introduced in Parliament before Christmas. The government's calling it the Green Deal, and it hopes it will help upgrade homes, reduce energy bills and create 100,000 new jobs. Greg Barker, the Conservative MP for Bexhill and Battle, is the Energy Minister, and he told me how much people would be allowed to spend under the new scheme.
Well, people will be able to spend up to £6,000 on a whole range of measures. Now, that obviously may mean the most obvious things like lagging their loft or solid wall insulation, but we hope that there'll be a wide range of affordable and effective measures that will also be available to the consumer under this Green Deal, and more innovation will come through in due course. And we want to make these things available to everybody, and the key thing is that they won't have to put up any money up front at all. These will all be paid for over 25 years from a levy on the bill of that household, regardless of whether the people who initiate those measures move on or what their status is. It's not going to be a loan. It won't affect their credit status. It's not going to be credit checked. They could be a student, a pensioner, a young family. It really doesn't matter. Everybody, whether they're a homeowner or a tenant, will be able to apply for Green Deal measures to improve the property that they live in. But the important thing is this golden rule, which means that everybody will save money as a result of doing it, as well as improving their home. And that's that the measures that are taken must always create a greater saving than the costs of actually financing them. So there'll be money left over to be shared with the householder. So everybody's bills should go down that does the Green Deal.
So you said everybody's bills should go down. The money, will that come from the energy company then, if the charge against the property is added to the bill?
The money will actually come from a range of sources, because we're going to give consumers a big choice in who they want to do it. For example, if it were a company like Marks and Spencer's or B&Q, for example, it could come from those companies, or they might choose to partner with a specialist finance company. Or if it's one of the big energy companies, they might choose to fund it themselves. These are utility companies with very big balance sheets. But at the end of the day, the average consumer doesn't have to worry about those things. It'll be up to the suppliers of the measures to fund it in the way that's most cost effective for them and the consumer won't have to worry about it. All they'll know is that it will find its way onto their bill and will be repaid over 25 years, provided that the savings are always greater than the financing costs.
So there's absolutely no way, let's be clear then, that you can spend money on anything that will result in your bill going up, even including the cost of the charge against the property.
Yeah, I mean, the key point here is we can't guarantee that your bill won't go up, because we can't guarantee that people won't change their behaviour. So there is always the prospect that somebody could choose to have their central heating on full blast through the winter going forward, and obviously that would result in higher bills. But assuming that their behaviour doesn't change, then we would have a proper energy audit of the property to make sure that the measures went in, delivered savings that they should be able to anticipate when working out what the finances are, and that's what the golden rule is.
I'm sure you've seen the news cuttings that I have seen, and people doing the maths, calculating that the companies involved in this process will have to go out to the markets and borrow the money, and they will have to charge interest on that money. And people have done the sums and said that for something like, for example, this solid wall insulation that you're talking about, it will not result in lower bills, because once you've spread the cost over a number of years and paid even a modest amount of interest, you will be paying more than you would have been paying if you hadn't had it done.
You're absolutely right. For some measures, like solid wall insulation, you can't justify it just on what they call the pay-as-you-save model. That's why there will be this subsidy that will pay for those measures, so they won't be loaded back onto the bill. So those simple measures that do pay for themselves, that will wash their face, as they say, over a period of time, will go on to the bill, but the savings that they generate will be greater than the financing of those. For the additional measures that don't have an economic payback, there will be direct subsidy available to do that for all of these homes. And we anticipate that that subsidy will be targeted on those on lower incomes who can't capture the savings because they're not spending the money on their bill in the first place, or in the hard-to-treat homes, the older properties, where you do have to spend more money than is normal in order to capture these savings. Because it's not just about lowering people's bills, it's also about making sure that we improve the housing stock and that we reduce the carbon emissions that are coming from Britain's buildings.
If this charge goes on energy bills, you are handing over the running of this Green Deal to the energy companies. And some people question that because they say energy companies haven't so far covered themselves in glory where energy saving initiatives are concerned, and they don't have a great track record for customer service.
Well, you're absolutely right, which is why we're not handing this over to the energy companies. The energy companies will be part of the mix. But the great thing about the Green Deal is it's going to create a new market, and we're going to see a lot more players, unconventional players coming in. So the likes of Marks and Spencer's, Sainsbury's, B&Q, Tesco perhaps.
Local councils?
Local councils, and also local companies. This isn't just about the big boys. We want to create an opportunity for, great local companies, smaller players to get in, who often know, their neighbourhoods better than any of the national brands. And trusted local tradesmen will be able to access this deal. So this is going to create a completely new market. It's going to bring in a lot more players who understand how to give the consumer the experience they like and maybe have a really good, trusted relationship with the consumer. So it's not just about the same old suspects of the big six energy players. Absolutely not. No, we're bringing in new participants.
When will people be able to apply for this money?
Well, it will be a while. We've got to take the bill through Parliament. It will come in to Parliament just before Christmas. It will hopefully get royal assent by the summer. We then have to bring in secondary legislation to set the standards for consumer protection and for the standards for the installers and also for the equipment that they'll be installing. So there's quite a lot of technical detail that will need to then be sorted, because consumer protection is going to be very, very key to making sure that the rollout is a success. But we hope that will be able to be completed by the second half of 2012.
That was the Energy Minister, Greg Barker. And if you'd like to tell us what you think about that proposal, you can email us bbc.co.uk/radio4/you and yours. People who are owed money by Crown Currency had a chance